The galaxy's peace is a fragile thing, held together by an intricate web of treaties, compromise, and wary alliances. After centuries of war between the various species of the galaxy, the Galactic Accord was signed, an agreement forged in the crucible of conflict. But that peace is tenuous at best, built on the shared desire to avoid mutual destruction. And at the heart of this uneasy truce is humanity, newly inducted into the galactic community just 2 decades ago. Fresh off their brutal war with the alien invaders, humanity is a wild card. Their strength, unpredictability, and untested resolve stir up both admiration and fear. While the old powers, the Triumvirate Council, and the Varelian Syndicate have perfected the art of patience and political maneuvering, humanity brings with it something new, a raw, untamed energy. The galaxy's older species view humanity with suspicion, unsure whether their resilience is a gift or a threat. The Treaty of Zaloria had barely been signed when tensions flared, and the human fleet, led by Captain Mira Holt, had been thrust into diplomatic missions to show the galaxy that Earth could be a partner in peace. But peace is something these ancient species find difficult to trust, and humanity's place in it is still being written. Captain Mira Holt is a name that echoes through the halls of every council chamber in the galaxy, a woman whose victories are spoken of in hushed tones, as much myth as reality. To the galaxy, she is the enigma, a leader whose strategies leave even the most seasoned warlords scratching their heads. No one knows how she achieves the impossible. One moment, she's pinned down in an asteroid field. The next, she's turning the tide of battle, flanking her enemies in a way no one saw coming. Her reputation is not without cost. The older species fear her, but they also respect her. She commands the human fleet with an air of calm confidence, never revealing her next move until it's too late for her enemies to act. Her military mind is a labyrinth, and few understand its twists and turns, but those who do know the cost of underestimating her. Some think her too unpredictable, too chaotic for a galaxy that values order above all else. Yet her success in the face of impossible odds has earned her a place among the galaxy's finest, albeit reluctantly. As Captain Holt steps onto the bridge of her ship, the stars outside seem to grow dimmer. The weight of her decisions rests on her shoulders, each one shaping the destiny of a galaxy that hasn't quite decided whether to embrace her or fear her. The message arrives without warning, transmitted on a secure channel with no room for negotiation. The Thalvori warlord demands an urgent peace conference. The location? A contested world on the edge of galaxy space, far from the influence of the Galactic Council. A place where borders shift like sand in the wind, where tension runs high and suspicion runs deeper. The world is on the brink of war, but no one has claimed responsibility for the recent attack on the Thalvori mining colonies. It's a delicate dance, an intricate balancing act between the fragile peace that holds the galaxy together and the rising tensions at the border. The Thalvori have never trusted humanity, and the attack on their colonies has only fueled their suspicions. An invasion they fear may be imminent. But Captain Mira Holt's fleet has been called to the edge of this boiling cauldron. She's been tasked with what seems impossible: to walk into the storm and defuse it before it consumes everything. As the human fleet approaches the edge of contested space, Mira's sharp eyes scan the comms reports, looking for any hint of an edge, any weakness in the situation she can exploit. The galaxy waits, breath held. Will peace hold, or will Mira's presence trigger the collapse of the delicate peace that has been so hard won?
Captain Mira Holt's ship descends through the atmosphere of the contested world. The alien delegates, assembled and wary, are on edge as they await her arrival. Her ship lands quietly, no pomp or ceremony, just the hum of the engines as the ramp lowers. Mira steps out, her footsteps reverberating across the cold ground, her silhouette strong and composed against the stormy skies. The alien representatives can feel her presence even before she speaks a word. Mira's gaze sweeps over the tense assembly of warlords, diplomats, and soldiers. She says nothing, but her mere presence commands the room. The delegates, each a leader of their own species, shift nervously. They had expected someone else, someone less unpredictable. But Mira is no diplomat. She is a soldier, and her silence is far more dangerous than any words. The hum of the crowd fades into nothingness, replaced by the weight of the moment. There is no grand speech, no attempt to ingratiate herself with the alien leaders. Mira Holt is here to command, not to negotiate. Her posture speaks volumes. She has no fear of what these factions could do, and she has no intention of bending to their demands. The storm rages outside, but inside, it is as though the universe itself holds its breath, waiting for the next move. The Thalvari warlord, his green reptilian face twisted into a cruel grin, steps forward to deliver his ultimatum. The delegates watch as he delivers a message with a cold, measured tone. If humanity is found responsible for the attack on our colonies, your species will be annihilated. No mercy will be given, no reprieve. The words hang in the air like a guillotine, suspended by the tension. The galaxy's most powerful species watch on, their eyes flickering between Mira and the warlord, waiting for a sign, anything that will indicate how the human captain will respond. Would she flinch? Would she break under the pressure? Mira remains motionless. Her face betrays no emotion, her hands folded behind her back. The room is silent, the tension palpable. The threat was designed to break her, to shake the foundation of the peace process. But Mira is unyielding. She does not rise to the bait. Her eyes meet the warlord's with unflinching steadiness. The other delegates stir, unsure what to make of her silence. This is not the reaction they expected. The Thalvari warlord's grip on the armrest tightens. He leans in, waiting for the human captain to make a mistake. But Mira's unshakable demeanor remains. And then, she smiles. The room gasps as Mira Holt's lips curl upward in the faintest of smiles, calm, unafraid, but undeniably confident. The moment is so subtle, so quiet, but it reverberates across the galaxy like a thunderclap. Humanity's reaction to the threat is not fear, it is not surrender. Mira does not tremble, she does not falter. Instead, she stands taller than any of the delegates, taller than the warlord, taller than the weight of centuries of galactic conflict. She stands not as a victim, but as a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy holds its breath. What does this smile mean? Is it an invitation to war? A calculated risk? Or is it the beginning of something far more terrifying? The first glimpse of the true power of humanity, unrestrained and untamed. The Thalvari warlord blinks, taken aback. The delegates exchange glances, unsure how to proceed. This human, this unpredictable force of nature, has just sent a message louder than any fleet could have. She has not flinched, she has not yielded. The galaxy is about to learn the true meaning of human resilience. And Captain Mira Holt has just sealed humanity's place on the galactic stage.
The galaxy had been on the edge for decades. A cold peace had settled in, fragile as glass, held together by the ever-present weight of previous wars. Species that had once been bitter enemies now coexisted in an uneasy truce, trying to build a future out of the ashes of the past. Humanity, only 20 years integrated into the Galactic Accord, was an unpredictable new player. Young, brash, and full of raw energy, Earth's presence unsettled many of the galaxy's older, more calculated species. The galaxy watched as humans navigated this new reality, wondering how far they could go, what mistakes they might make, and whether they could be trusted. Captain Mira Holt, commander of the human fleet, was a paradox in this volatile new age. When the time came for delicate negotiations, it was her they turned to. Despite the uncertainties around her, why did she always succeed, and at what cost? She was the one who had been trusted to keep humanity's name clean. The galaxy was watching, waiting for the next move. When Mira smiled at the alien warlord across the table, a simple gesture seen as a signal of confidence, no one realized its true weight. To most, it was just a human smile, one born from calm control. But to Mira, it was a signal, a message sent in the quietest of ways. And the galaxy would soon understand that every movement of hers was calculated. That smile, it had started something far bigger than anyone could imagine. Mira stood at the helm of the Nighthawk, her ship cutting through the cold expanse of space as a hushed tension filled the air. The crew was still reeling from the moment at the negotiation table, but Mira was already thinking 2 steps ahead. The Nighthawk's advanced sensors flickered to life, picking up encrypted transmissions. At first, they seemed routine, alien chatter from various factions, but then something caught Mira's eye. A subtle anomaly, a pattern. It didn't take long to piece it together. A coup was underway. And not just any coup, it was an inside job, deep within one of the largest core empires of the Galactic Accord. Factions within the empire had conspired to destabilize the fragile peace. Their goal was simple: to reignite the war. The gravity of the situation slammed into Mira. The galaxy was on the brink of something far worse than the skirmishes of the past. A war engineered not by rogue factions, but by those within the very system meant to keep the peace. She stared at the data, now understanding the dark truth. She had walked straight into a deadly trap. It wasn't just about the negotiations anymore. The coup was designed to shift blame onto humanity. The first step? Frame Earth for the attack on the contested border world. If Mira couldn't stop this in time, humanity would bear the brunt of a galactic storm. The Nighthawk's crew felt the icy tension ripple through the command deck. Every moment was precious now. Mira's fingers hovered over the controls as the full scope of the plot unfolded before her. The conspiracy was deeper than she had anticipated. The attack on the border world wasn't a random act of aggression, it was meticulously planned. And the goal? To make humanity the scapegoat. They had engineered the perfect storm. The galaxy, already distrustful of Earth, would turn against humanity with catastrophic speed. Mira's mind raced. This was no longer about defending her people against suspicion, it was about survival. If she didn't act fast, Earth would become the galaxy's enemy, and all their hard-won peace would collapse into chaos. In the quiet of the command room, her crew could only watch as she analyzed the data. The truth hung heavy in the air. Earth was about to be blamed for a crime it didn't commit. The repercussions would be catastrophic. The galaxy was on the verge of an all-out war, one that humanity could never survive. How could Mira protect Earth when even her own allies had fallen into the trap? This wasn't just betrayal from outside, this was a systemic plot to tear everything down, and humanity was the most convenient target.
Mira stared out the viewport of the Nighthawk. The stars blurred as she processed the enormity of her next decision. A war was coming. But it wasn't a war she could wait for, not this time. The information was clear. The conspiracy was deep-rooted, with forces already in motion to frame humanity. If she didn't act fast, Earth would be destroyed before it even had a chance to defend itself. She had no choice. In the silence of her quarters, Mira made the hardest decision of her career. She would have to strike first, expose the plot before it could unfold. Not in defense, but in offense. The Nighthawk would enter enemy space in defiance of all galactic treaties. A preemptive strike. She would have to risk everything. Her crew was silent, and the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. They all knew what this meant. If she failed, humanity would be wiped out in an instant. Yet Mira remained calm, unwavering in her resolve. Her decision was made. "Prepare for the jump," she said, her voice a steady command. "We don't have time to lose." The Nighthawk slipped silently through the void, her engines humming with deadly purpose. Mira stood at the helm, her face calm, betraying no sign of the weight pressing on her shoulders. Her decision was made. She was heading straight for enemy territory, a galaxy in turmoil, and the only thing that stood between her and complete disaster was her mind. "Captain," a voice broke through her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Harper, her most trusted officer. "Are you sure about this?" Mira's eyes flicked to the navigation screen. "We have no choice. This is the only way to save Earth, to save us all." The crew, though loyal, wasn't fully convinced. There was a sense of unease among them. Could one human, one ship, really stop a conspiracy this large? The answer was simple to Mira. Yes, she had no doubt. If anyone could end this, it was her. As the Nighthawk sliced through the stars, heading into the heart of enemy space, Mira's resolve only strengthened. There was no going back now. The galaxy would have to face the truth, and if that truth meant war, so be it. As the days passed, the tension aboard the Nighthawk reached a boiling point. Crew members who had once stood firm beside Mira were beginning to question her judgment. "Captain, please," Officer Lee said, pacing back and forth in the command room. "We don't have to go through with this. There are diplomatic channels we can use. We can work with the Council, talk it through. This isn't the only way." But Mira's eyes remained fixed on the stars. "Every moment we waste here is a moment Earth gets closer to destruction. We don't have time for diplomacy. Not this time." Her crew, though loyal, was divided. They knew what was at stake. They had seen Mira win impossible battles before, but this was different. They were racing against time, against enemies from within and outside the Accord. The decision to go to war wasn't just Mira's, it was everyone's. They had all chosen to follow her into the unknown. Mira stood on the bridge, her eyes watching the stars. The mutter of discontent from her crew filled the room, but she was unmoved. "We don't start fights, but we end them." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything she stood for. She wasn't here to conquer or destroy. She was here to protect humanity and to do whatever it took to prevent a war that would obliterate them all. Her crew, standing in silence, finally understood. Mira wasn't leading them into the unknown blindly. She was leading them with purpose. Every step she took was part of a greater plan, one that would either save them or damn them all. They had no choice but to follow.
The final stretch to the enemy stronghold was nerve-wracking. Mira's crew could feel the tension mounting as they neared their destination. The stakes had never been higher. Mira's message was simple. If they didn't expose the conspiracy now, the galaxy would fall into chaos. The plot would destroy Earth and bring the galaxy to the brink of war. The Nighthawk was the last hope for peace. As they arrived, Mira stood at the ready, her mind as sharp as ever. "This ends now," she whispered, ready to strike before the galaxy could tear itself apart. The next move would either make her a hero or a pariah. Mira stood at the helm of her ship, gazing into the vast expanse of space. The stars outside shimmered with an almost mocking calmness, a stark contrast to the storm of danger brewing within her command. Her mind raced, plotting the next move in the intricate web she had woven. The enemy was close, but they didn't know she was already several steps ahead. She had learned to think like them, to anticipate their moves. She was playing a game of deception, a game where the stakes were not just survival, but the fate of the galaxy. With a quiet breath, she issued orders to leak false intelligence, feeding the enemy a trail that would lead them directly into her trap. A small, seemingly insignificant weakness, a crack in her defenses, was her bait. It would draw them in, make them believe they had her cornered. But in truth, Mira had already predicted this move, and the enemy was walking right into her hands. The psychological warfare was her specialty. She had manipulated their perceptions, twisted their beliefs, and now she was waiting for the inevitable. The moment they would reveal their true intentions, their vulnerability. She kept her emotions in check, her face an unreadable mask, but inside a cold thrill surged through her veins. She would outsmart them, just as she always did. The trap was set. She could already hear the enemy's commanders whispering in their dark corners, discussing their victory, unaware that it was already slipping through their fingers. Mira's mind raced as she paced the dimly lit war room. The weight of the galaxy seemed to hang in the air, thick and suffocating. She was used to making tough decisions, but this felt different. The stakes were higher than ever, and she was no longer fighting just for survival. She was fighting for the future. Her first unexpected ally was Koran, a disgraced tactician from a long-forgotten alien species. Once renowned for his strategic brilliance, he had fallen from grace after a failed campaign. Now, seeking redemption, Koran was willing to risk everything to prove his worth. His insights into enemy tactics were invaluable, but his motivations remained unclear. Was he truly loyal, or was he simply using her to restore his shattered reputation?
Then there was Lyra, the rogue AI, once a threat to humanity, now an unlikely ally. Its data was crucial, holding valuable intelligence on the coup leaders and their movements. Mira knew she should be wary, but something about the AI's cold, calculating nature appealed to her. It wasn't human, yet it understood the gravity of the situation in a way no one else could. And lastly, there was Eric, the diplomat. He had no experience in battle, no knowledge of warfare, but his unwavering faith in Mira's leadership was enough to earn him a place at the table. His vision for peace was a strange counterpoint to the violence of their current situation, but Mira found herself listening to him more often than she expected. These three, Karan, Lyra, and Eric, were her allies now. Each of them brought something unique to the table, but they also brought risks. Trusting them was dangerous, but Mira had no choice. She was fighting a war on multiple fronts, and if she didn't take the chance to form these unorthodox alliances, she risked losing everything.
Mira sat alone in the dim glow of her command console, the hum of the ship's engines vibrating beneath her feet. The transmission from Union Command had just ended, and the words echoed in her mind. "You're a rogue agent, Mira. You're on your own now." The words stung more than she'd like to admit. She had always followed orders, always. But this mission, this situation was different. The Union's bureaucracy was slow, inflexible, and often blind to the threats they faced. Mira had tried to play by their rules, but time and time again, the Union had failed to act decisively. She could no longer wait for them to make a move. She had to act now, even if it meant defying orders. But the cost was high. She was no longer operating within the Union's fold, and that meant every decision she made was now a risk. The weight of her choices pressed heavily on her shoulders. She wasn't just fighting an external enemy, she was fighting a system that was supposed to protect humanity, but had instead become its own obstacle. As Mira stared at the screen, the cold reality set in. The path she had chosen would either save the galaxy or lead to its destruction. There was no middle ground. Mira's hands clenched around the armrest of her chair, her eyes scanning the data reports. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the pit of her stomach. Systems were failing at an alarming rate, and the damage was too precise to be an accident. It wasn't sabotage from an outside source, it was coming from within her own ranks. Her heart raced as the implications of this discovery sank in. Someone on her crew was a traitor, a mole, a spy. The realization hit harder than any weapon. She had trusted these people with her life, and now one of them had turned against her. Mira stormed to the bridge, her mind racing with possibilities. Who could it be? She had handpicked every member of her crew, carefully selecting them based on their loyalty, their skills, their reliability. Yet someone had slipped through the cracks. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the crew worked furiously to contain the damage. Mira's eyes scanned each face, wondering who could be the traitor. Every crew member seemed innocent. Every one of them seemed loyal. But Mira knew better than to trust appearances. In the shadows, a traitor lurked, and time was running out. Mira stood at the tactical table, the map of the station laid out before her. Two choices, two impossible choices. A group of civilians were trapped in a compromised sector, their only hope of survival resting on Mira's decision. Or she could pursue the intel, the critical data that could expose the coup and end the war before it started. The lives of innocent people or the future of the galaxy. It was a decision that tore at her soul. Her mind screamed to save them all, but the stakes of the mission were too high. This wasn't just a war for survival, it was a war for the future, for humanity's place in the stars. But Mira wasn't just a soldier, she was human, and that meant making the kind of choices no one should have to make. With a heavy heart, she made her decision, knowing full well the consequences would haunt her for the rest of her life. Mira sat in the quiet of her private quarters, her face reflected in the glass of the viewport. The stars outside seemed so distant, so indifferent. Yet in the silence she felt more alone than ever before. She was the one everyone turned to, the one who carried the weight of the galaxy on her shoulders. Her crew looked to her for guidance, for strength, for leadership. But what they didn't see was the fear, the doubt, the crushing loneliness. She had become the leader they needed, not the person she wanted to be.
She had learned long ago that to survive she had to be cold, calculating, and unyielding, but that didn't mean she enjoyed it. The smile that had once been a symbol of confidence, of certainty, now felt like a mask she wore to hide the uncertainty inside. She had become the person she needed to be, not the person she wanted to be. And sometimes that smile haunted her more than any enemy.
Mira's eyes narrowed as she watched the enemy fleet approach on the tactical display. The calm before the storm. She had been here before, facing impossible odds, facing enemies who underestimated her. Her smile was the only sign of confidence. To them, it was just a smile. To her, it was the key to victory. She understood that sometimes being underestimated was the greatest weapon in war. She had made them think she was weak, think she was cornered, but she had played the long game, and now it was time to strike. The tension was unbearable. Mira stood on the command deck, her eyes fixed on the stars outside. The coup was in full swing, and everything she had worked for was hanging by a thread. Her allies, her plans, they were all on the verge of unraveling. The enemy launched their final assault, their ships breaking through her defenses with devastating force. Mira's heart raced as she realized the moment of truth had arrived. This was the point of no return. The war was here, and she was the only one who could stop it, or let it consume them all. As the battle raged outside, Mira's smile, once a symbol of control, felt like the last glimmer of hope before the storm. But even in the face of certain destruction, she refused to back down. She would fight, no matter the cost. The galaxy was at war, and Mira was ready to lead them through it. Mira stood on the bridge, the cold hum of the ship's engines a constant reminder of the weight of her decision. Her fingers hovered over the control panel, her eyes locked on the enemy fleet's position on the holographic map. The galaxy, on the brink of chaos, had no idea what was about to unfold. With a single press of a button, her message was broadcast to the galaxy. Earth surrenders. We bow to your demands. The war is over. It was a bold move, but it had to be done. Mira knew that this false surrender would send shockwaves through the galaxy. The enemy would celebrate their apparent victory, unaware that they had just walked into a meticulously planned trap. Their arrogance would be their undoing. Across the stars, the enemy fleet erupted in celebration. Their commanders, victorious, began their preparations for a final conquest, believing they had broken Earth's will. But Mira knew better. This was just the beginning. The tension in the air was palpable, her heart beating in sync with the countdown. The trap was set, and soon they would reveal themselves. Soon the galaxy would see the enemy for what they truly were, a force bent on destruction, a cosmic plague. The enemy had no idea what they had just set in motion. Mira's message had drawn them into a false sense of security, and now the moment had a hand. From the void of space, ships began to decloak. Massive warships that had been hiding in plain sight. They emerged from their cloaking fields, their sleek designs shimmering like predators in the darkness. The vastness of their numbers was staggering. Then a message was intercepted, a leak from the enemy command. Mira's eyes flickered over the transmission, her heart racing as the conspiracy began to unfold. Plans to annihilate entire planets, to erase the fragile peace that had taken centuries to build, were now in the open. The true extent of the enemy's treachery was laid bare, and the galaxy would never be the same. Their leaders had manipulated factions, controlled economies, and orchestrated events from the shadows, all to create a war that would serve their own twisted agenda. Mira's gamble had paid off. The enemy's pride had blinded them to the dangers of underestimating humanity. They had given her the chance she needed to expose them.
Just as the enemy thought they had Earth cornered, the skies above the planet erupted in a dazzling display of power. From hidden corners of the galaxy, Earth's fleet emerged from the shadow of moons and asteroid fields, ships that had been prepared in secret for this very moment. Their technology, sleek, advanced, and far beyond anything the enemy had anticipated, unfurled in a brilliant array of weaponry and maneuverability. The Black Space Maneuver was the crown jewel, a tactic designed to make ships invisible in deep space. As Earth's hidden fleet materialized, the enemy's disbelief was palpable. They had written humanity off as primitive,
a mere footnote in galactic history. But now, Earth's resolve and ingenuity stood tall against their invaders. The realization hit the enemy like a thunderclap. Humanity had been holding its cards close, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, that moment had arrived. The balance of power in the galaxy shifted, and the enemy found themselves on the defensive. Space became a battlefield, a vast expanse where the clash of wills reverberated across the stars. Mira watched from the bridge as her fleet engaged the enemy, the energy of 100 ships rippling through the void. Explosions lit up the dark expanse, lighting up the surrounding stars in violent bursts of color. Each ship, each pilot, fought not just for survival, but for something greater. Earth's resilience, its creativity, and its relentless will to overcome every obstacle became the heart of the battle. The enemy, with their superior numbers and firepower, found themselves constantly outmaneuvered. It wasn't just technology that made the difference. It was the human spirit, unyielding, unpredictable, and daring to do what others thought impossible. Mira's strategy unfolded in real time, a masterclass in tactics. As the enemy tried to press their advantage, she struck from unexpected angles, using the environment to her advantage. The space around them became a weapon, each asteroid, each moon, a shield and a weapon in the hands of Earth's finest. But this battle wasn't just about firepower, it was a test of will. The enemy, cold and calculated, could never understand the fire that burned in the hearts of those who fought for Earth. They didn't know that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't in its ships, but in the unyielding resolve of every soldier, every captain, every person who called Earth home. The final confrontation was not fought with ships, but with words. Mira stood face to face with the mastermind behind the conspiracy, a cold and calculating figure who had orchestrated the war. Their eyes locked, and for a moment the vastness of space seemed to shrink around them. "You think you've won," the mastermind said, voice dripping with condescension. "But you're just delaying the inevitable." Mira's gaze was unwavering. She said calm but laced with conviction. "You underestimate us. You think Earth is just a small, insignificant planet. But what you don't realize is that we've always been fighting for something more than survival. We fight because we have something to prove." The mastermind scoffed. "And what is that? Your desperate will to survive? Your childish hope?" Mira stepped closer, her words cutting through the air like a blade. "No, we fight because we are human, and we've survived extinction, war, and betrayal. You think fear will win this battle? It won't. Desperation will." Her words, steady and unflinching, unraveled the mastermind's composure. The cold, calculating figure before her began to falter. He couldn't understand it, this force of humanity, so unlike anything he had ever encountered.
The enemy, once so confident in their victory, began to break. Panic spread like wildfire through their ranks as the weight of Mira's words sank in. They couldn't understand how their superior technology and strategy had been thwarted by an opponent who fought not just for survival, but for something far more powerful: hope. The once unshakable enemy fleet began to crumble. Ships that had been poised for victory now fled in disarray. The enemy's commanders, their minds unraveling, couldn't handle the psychological shock of facing a force that didn't respond to fear, only to resolve. Mira's smile, once seen as a mere tactic, now became a symbol of terror. It was the smile of someone who had nothing left to lose, who would fight until the last breath. And that terrified the enemy more than any weapon. As the last remnants of the enemy fleet dissolved into the vastness of space, Mira stood alone on the bridge, her eyes staring out into the quiet abyss. The battle was over, but the victory was bittersweet. She thought about the lives lost, the alliances forged in the heat of battle, and the sacrifices made for this moment. Humanity had won, but at what cost? In the silence of space, Mira reflected on the leadership she had been forced to embrace. It wasn't just about tactics and strategy, it was about something deeper.
about the resilience of a people who would never give up no matter the odds. The galaxy would never forget Mira's smile. It was a symbol of Earth's strength, its place among the stars. The coup was defeated, peace was restored, but Mira knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity's victory wasn't just about winning a battle. It was about showing the galaxy that Earth was not to be underestimated. Peace had to be fought for every day, and the challenges ahead would be even greater. But Mira was ready, and so was humanity. The smile that once symbolized calm confidence now carried the weight of a legacy, one that would echo across the stars for generations to come. As the stars shimmered in the distance, Mira knew that humanity had earned its place among the great powers of the galaxy. The war was over, but the fight for the future was just beginning. The galaxy watches in stunned silence as the long-hidden conspiracy unfolds, unraveling in front of the eyes of millions. The traitors, once trusted leaders, are exposed for their attempts to destroy the fragile peace that had barely held the stars together. From the core systems to the farthest colonies, the shockwaves of the revelation reverberate. At the heart of this storm stands Mira, the human strategist, whose carefully laid plan has turned the tables. The enemies, who once plotted Earth's destruction, now find themselves exposed. Their secret communications are broadcast to the entire galaxy, leaving them scrambling, unable to hide behind their veils of deceit. As the conspiracy unravels, the reaction of the galaxy is immediate and varied. Some species, their pride shaken, begin to reevaluate their perception of humanity. They had long underestimated Earth, viewing them as insignificant in the grand scheme of galactic power. Now, with the threat revealed, they are forced to confront a harsh truth. Humanity is not just a fledgling species, they are a force to be reckoned with. Others, however, feel the weight of their own failure, knowing that their hesitation may have allowed this disaster to unfold. Peace holds, but it's a fragile peace, teetering on the edge of uncertainty. The galaxy is in flux. Some see humanity as the saviors who thwarted a catastrophe, while others resent the shift in the balance of power. But one thing is clear, the galaxy will never look at Earth the same way again.
Mira stands alone, her back to the crowd as the applause fades into an awkward silence. Medals are offered, but she rejects them. She's not interested in fame or accolades. Mira never wanted to be a hero. She only wanted to protect what mattered. The weight of the universe is not something she's willing to carry, not as a symbol, but as a protector. I didn't come here to be a monster, Mira says, her voice steady but filled with a quiet fury. But if you try to make us one, you'll regret it. The words hang in the air like a promise, a threat and a warning all at once. As she leaves the hall, her expression unreadable, she returns to her ship, the only place where she feels grounded. The crew watches in silence as their commander disappears into the shadows. Her actions have changed the course of history, but to her, it's just another day's work. Her true mission is not over, and her eyes remain fixed on the horizon, where the next challenge waits. The galaxy may think of her as a hero, but Mira knows the truth. The battle for peace is far from won. Mira's words echo through the galaxy, sending ripples of fear and uncertainty. The peace she has secured is fragile, a delicate thread stretching between cooperation and conflict. No one can deny that humanity's will is a force to be reckoned with, one that can destroy, but also one that can restore. The galaxy, once confident in its dominance, now shivers at the thought of what could happen if humanity is pushed too far. There is no alliance, no treaty, no peace that can stop the unstoppable force of human determination. The other species know this now. They know that while humanity may not seek war, if provoked, it can end it with terrifying efficiency. The shift in the galaxy is palpable. Conversations pause when Mira's name is mentioned. A cold shiver runs through those who know they've underestimated humanity. It's not the fear of war that keeps them awake at night. It's the fear of peace, and what that peace means for the future of their species. Her allies, those who fought alongside her, begin to understand that Mira's greatest strength doesn't lie in her tactical genius or her superior technology. It lies in something far more profound: the ability to influence the emotions of those around her. She doesn't simply command, she connects. She doesn't just plan, she understands what makes people tick, what drives them, what breaks them. Her power is not like that of the machines or the super soldiers of other species. It's not cold calculation or the sterile precision of advanced algorithms. It's raw human emotion: fear, hope, anger, love, desperation. It's something no enemy simulation can predict or prepare for. In the heat of battle, Mira can make even the most hardened general doubt their decisions, can cause an enemy fleet to hesitate when victory is in sight simply by speaking a few words. Her emotional mastery, honed through years of struggle and loss, is her greatest weapon. And yet, it is also her greatest burden. For all her ability to command, to inspire, and to protect, Mira knows that there will always be a cost to using her influence. She is a force of nature, but that power comes with a heavy price, one she is willing to pay as long as she can keep her crew and her people safe. What the galaxy truly fears is not war itself, but Mira's ability to end it. Her greatest strength is not in her capacity to destroy, but in her capacity to bring peace. She can turn the tide of a battle with a single decision, a single move that others would hesitate to make. That is what terrifies her enemies. It's not the force of destruction that others fear. It's the fear of facing a mind so sharp, so unyielding, that no simulation or countermeasure can predict its actions. Mira is unpredictable because she is human, driven not by logic alone, but by the emotional force that shapes every decision she makes. Her enemies, once confident that they could force her to surrender or break her resolve, now understand the truth. Humanity's greatest weapon is not its machines, its fleets, or its technology. It is its unwavering will, its willingness to endure, to fight, and to sacrifice everything to protect what it loves. And that is what makes Mira so terrifying. She is the one who can end the war before it even begins.
The war is over. The conspirators have been exposed. The galaxy's peace has been temporarily secured, and Mira's actions will be remembered as the turning point in galactic history. But there is no celebration, no fanfare. The victory, while significant, feels hollow. Mira watches the stars from the bridge of her ship, the quiet hum of the engines the only sound in the stillness. The galaxy is at peace, for now, but she knows that peace is fragile. The balance between cooperation and confrontation is delicate, and humanity's place in the galaxy, once uncertain, is now a fact. But with that place comes responsibility. Peace may be won, but it will always require vigilance, sacrifice, and a willingness to do what others cannot or will not. As Mira reflects on the cost of this victory, she knows that the battle for peace is not over. It will never be over. But humanity has proven something fundamental. No one can ever underestimate them again. With the conspiracy exposed and peace tenuously held, humanity's role in the galaxy is now clear, though uncertain. Mira and her crew are no longer passive participants in the grand scheme of things. They have earned their place, but that place comes with great responsibility. The road ahead is not easy. There will be more challenges, more choices, and more moral dilemmas. Humanity is no longer the underdog. They are a force in galactic politics, and that means their actions will carry weight. The stakes are higher, and the future is uncertain. As Mira looks to the stars, she knows the road ahead will be filled with challenges, but she also knows that humanity is ready for whatever comes next. They have proved themselves, and the galaxy will never forget the price they've paid and the promise they've made to protect it.
The Grand Hall of the Accord Council is filled with delegates from across the galaxy. The air is thick with the hum of anticipation, the momentous occasion stirring the hearts of every species present. As Mira stands at the center, her gaze takes in the spectacle, a galaxy once divided, now brought together by the tireless efforts of humanity. The atmosphere is filled with a quiet sense of accomplishment, but also with a lingering weight, for peace has been bought at a high cost. The doors open, and a new species steps forward, their forms striking and foreign to human eyes. Their eyes, glowing softly, look upon humanity with a mixture of awe and reverence. The Accord has just welcomed them, marking the beginning of a new chapter. It is an affirmation that the galaxy is moving toward a future where cooperation, not conflict, is the answer. The delegates all look toward Mira as she stands, poised, though the faintest shadow crosses her features. It's impossible not to see the reflection of her past, the weight of her decisions etched into her expression. Her legacy lives on, etched in the hearts of the galaxy's leaders, who now look to humanity with a newfound respect, perhaps even fear. Mira had been the one to turn the tide, to bring them to this point. And though peace has settled over the galaxy like a delicate blanket, it's a peace built on the lessons of a bitter history, a reminder that the galaxy's fragile unity could easily fracture again. On a distant moon, beneath the luminous glow of twin suns, a young officer from the newly welcomed species sat, reading the accounts of Mira Holt, humanity's most legendary figure. Her eyes were wide with fascination as she skimmed the pages, the weight of history pressing upon her. The stories spoke of Mira's prowess in battle, her strategic genius, and the uncanny ability to strike terror into the hearts of even the most formidable of foes. With a quiet sigh, she closed the book and glanced across the room toward an old alien diplomat, one who had seen more wars and peace treaties than most could ever imagine. "Is it true?" she asked, her voice laced with awe. Was Mira really as dangerous as the tales suggest?
The old diplomat's eyes, dark and wise, shifted slowly toward her. There was a weight in his gaze, something unspoken, as he folded his hands before him. For a long moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. He nodded, slow and deliberate. "She wasn't just dangerous because of her strength," he said, his voice thick with memory. "It was her smile, child. Her smile was what made her terrifying. She could face death itself and still smile. And in that smile, you knew no one, not even the greatest of us, could match the power of humanity's will." The officer swallowed, her mind racing. In the quiet of the room, the true gravity of Mira's legacy settled over her. A reminder that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its fighting ability, but its unyielding spirit, a force no one could predict or control. The scene shifts to a quiet, serene garden on a distant planet. An alien world, yet strangely comforting. The air is soft, carrying the sweet scent of strange alien flowers that bloom in hues of violet and gold. Mira, older now, walks slowly down a narrow stone path, her boots silent against the ground. There is no weight to her movements anymore, no tension in the way she holds herself. She has become something else, someone who has come to terms with the past and is finally ready to embrace peace. She stops near a small, tranquil pond, watching as the sunlight dances off its surface. A rare, genuine smile curls on her lips. It's soft, unburdened, not forced or calculated for effect. This is a moment of true peace, a stark contrast to the battles and sacrifices she endured throughout her life. Her face, once hardened by the endless pressure of command, now bears the calmness of someone who has finally found respite. The garden represents everything she fought for, the delicate balance between life and death, peace and war, chaos and calm. It is here, in this moment, that Mira finds what she had always been searching for: redemption. She places a hand gently on the edge of the pond, the stillness of the water reflecting the quiet serenity that now fills her soul.
For the first time in a long time, she feels no weight of responsibility pressing upon her shoulders. She is free. Free from the role the galaxy once demanded of her. Free from the constant battles that marked her life. In this moment, Mira has found peace not just with the galaxy, but with herself. And as she takes a deep breath, the weight of the past drifts away. Mira's smile remains, soft and full of understanding, as the camera pulls away, leaving her alone with the world she helped to save.